We earn money, save money, and buy things. Living beyond the economic cycle is impossible. What trends are dictated by world markets and how does it affect consumers? Watch it in People and Economy.
Last year, the number of travelers all over the world increased by 4.5% and reached a record of 1,184,000,000, reported the specialists of the World Tourism Organization. The tourism sector provides jobs to more than 126 million people. In the meantime, travelers bring the global economy about $2 trillion in profits. It is approximately 10% of GDP of all the countries around the world. Tourism is a very profitable business for any country because people make reservations for hotel rooms, buy souvenirs, book transfers, go on excursions and to the cinema. In other words, tourists invest money into the country's budget. The experts note that in our days, travelers are becoming thriftier. For reference, early expenditures for an average tourist overrun $2,000. Currently, this sum hardly ever exceeds $1,100. Formerly, tourists chose individual programs. Nowadays, most of people try to join already formed groups. Along with that, the experts say about the falling demand for outbound tourism. This negative trend forced many entrepreneurs to change business strategies and offer their customers better products. The managing director of a second-tier bank, Joly is one of these businessmen. In order to encourage people of Kazakhstan to travel, he and his team developed a special card. Paying with it allows the owner to earn money for travels. You can pay with this card in shops, restaurants and gasoline stations. It is also suitable for online purchases. Each payment gives you bonus miles for compensation of your traveling costs. Joly warns that bonus miles are only valid for rare tickets bought online. Notably, the volume of internet transactions doubled in the last 5 years. Currently, it nears $80 million, which makes up more than 10% of all air ticket sales. Online purchases are developing due to their cost advantages. E-purchases exclude any types of service fees. As a result, more and more people start using services of online agencies. Cutting costs is possible not only on tickets, but also on the way of traveling. There is a growing number of lovers of extreme and inexpensive outdoor activities who prefer traveling by car, by bicycle or by motorcycle instead of plane or train. Economy travels are now in trend. People spend nights in hostels and camping sites, cook food themselves and travel in public transport. UNESCO reports that 70% of tourists from all over the world do not need high-level services or other types of comfort. The new generation is seeking new experience. Whereas elder people are more interested in material values, the new generation needs new impressions. They are more mobile and enthusiastic. The main thing for them is to see the world. The demand for inbound tourism in Kazakhstan continues to grow. Market players say that annually the number of domestic tourists increases by 5%. The experts explain it by the affordability of one-day domestic tours. As a rule, their price does not exceed $50 per person. Currently, such tours account for 30% of all trips made by the local population. In total, people of Kazakhstan spend annually almost $5.5 million on this kind of leisure. Many companies which specialized in outbound tourism opened inbound tourism departments. They actively promote our numerous sanatoriums and health resorts. Business tourism is another popular trend. According to experts, it accounts for 20% of the tourism market and is considered one of the most economic and advantageous types of travel. Business tourism and services for business travelers account for about 50% of revenues of world air companies, approximately 60% of incomes of hotels, and more than 70% of earnings of car rental agencies. According to the calculations of the World Tourism Organization, 55% of tourists around the world are Europeans. Citizens of the UK, Sweden, France and Italy are disposed to save their money for a year in order to afford everything during holidays. For example, only in the UK, people spend almost $55 billion on leisure activities. Citizens of France spend 40 and of Germany $60 billion. First of all, these people are very thrifty. They work a lot and sometimes even have no breaks. But after retirement, they have much more possibilities in comparison with our pensioners. Because of that, among tourists in different countries, there are a lot of Germans. Many people organize their holidays independently and without the assistance of travel agencies and guides. The maximum amount they plan to spend usually does not exceed 2,000 euros per person. Expenses of tourists traveling by car are twice as little. As a rule, they travel in motorhomes or by bicycles and spend nights at camping sites or in hostels where accommodation costs do not exceed 10 euros. Europe enjoys the highest profit from international tourism, exceeding 500 billion euros. According to the World Tourism Organization, last year this region became the most visited place in the world. For instance, only Paris is visited by almost 80 million people from different countries. The number of tourists in Germany last year surpassed 75 million people. Thailand and India with their beaches, as well as Singapore, Malaysia and China with their excursions, are still considered the most popular destinations of many foreign holidaymakers. Thus, China alone is visited by more than 60 million international tourists who replenish the state budget by $45 billion annually. China attracts with its beaches, exotic sites, interesting excursions, high level of services and medicine for the interested tourists. The principal destination is of course Beijing, which we are always pleased to offer to our customers. Tourists from Japan prefer to visit foreign countries in groups. It is considered safer and more cost-effective. However, the majority of those who can afford traveling abroad are pensioners, and the salary is not the case. The main reason for that is that the Japanese are workaholics who cannot afford themselves additional days off, saying nothing of long holidays. On the average, local residents spend on traveling about $4,000 per person. Tourism in the US is a major economic sector which employs more than 7 million people. Only air ticket sales bring the profit of about $8 billion and increase by almost 5% annually. Famous natural and architectural monuments of the US draw attention of people from across the globe. For example, more than 5 million tourists come to see the Grand Canyon annually. 1 million more visit the Art Museum in New York. In the meantime, the Statue of Liberty is considered one of the world's most visited places of interest. In total, inbound and international tourism brings to the US budget almost $500 billion. Group tours, which allow a traveler to visit, for example, New York, Washington, Los Angeles and Niagara Falls, are very popular. A 5-year visa is very comfortable and enables a person to travel to the country at any time. Americans themselves visit Asian and Caribbean countries with great pleasure. However, most of American international tourists are retired people who make up for the lost time. Indeed, the duration of annual leave in the US does not exceed 12 days. Surveys show that last year, from 42 million of local pensioners, 20% took at least one tour. The world trend towards resource preservation and close unity with nature has also affected the sphere of travel. Nowadays, a lot of people are interested in ecotourism focused on visiting wildlife areas deprived of the modern infrastructure and other public goods. Routes are laid through rocks, geysers and caves. In some countries, such types of tourism are monitored by governments. Moreover, in other states, it has become the main source of budget replenishment. For instance, in the US, tourists spend about $15 billion on visiting natural areas. In Australia, $3 billion, and in Kenya, $500 million. It is popular in countries with a perfect ecology, such as Finland. People reserve camping sites in ecologically safe places where smoking and emissions are prohibited. Books, films and legends often act as determinant of tourism destinations. For example, after the release of The Lord of the Rings, the flow of tourists to New Zealand increased by 30%. 2.5 million people from different parts of the world visit the country annually with the purpose to have a look at places where the film was shot. Groups of tourists go to volcanoes and mountain slopes. Only the Hobbit village is visited by 300 people daily. And this is not the only case when a film or a book sparked interest towards a certain place. A British cathedral where the film about Harry Potter was shot became a place of interest not so long time ago. More than 350,000 tourists come here every year. At the same time, more than 500,000 tourists step across the threshold of the Dracula's castle, and at least 50,000 of admirers of the Three Musketeers visit Gascony. In order to cut costs during holidays, it is recommended to refuse services of guides by replacing them with electronic ones. In addition, tourist cards are available in many countries which give you considerable discounts on visiting places of interest, cafes and restaurants, as well as traveling on public transport. Getting such a card is possible even in a travel agency. There is also an international discount system for students, pensioners and disabled persons, which can help to reduce your expenditures by half. In the meantime, mobile applications can also help travelers in getting information about various offers and special campaigns. Mobile applications allow people to catch out such offers. Sometimes local air companies launch campaigns such as selling tickets to European countries at a reduced price. And these applications immediately inform you about that by sending a message. It allows you to buy the cheapest tickets. One more option for tourists to save their money is couchsurfing. This is a website which helps people from all over the world to arrange joint tours as well as to offer tourists from other countries free food or asylum. It should be noted that this assistance implies maximum safety for both the host party and the guest. For this purpose, the three-level check system has been developed. It allows to verify the user's identity. This type of leisure is especially popular among young people. Couchsurfing is one of the major guest networks. The website unites more than 7 million people in 250 countries. Its members offer each other free asylums, food and other types of assistance while traveling. Space tourism is the most extreme, expensive and rare type of travel. A flight to International Space Station lasts about 24 hours. The way back takes the same time. Over the last 15 years, 8 such tourists visited the orbit of the Earth. Initially, the price of such a trip was $20 to $25 million. By now, it has risen to $40 million. Besides that, a couple of years ago, it was decided to introduce a new types of service. Thus, going on a spacewalk will cost a tourist additional $15 million.